Welcome to Modern Art Blitz. I'm your always co-hostess, but today I'm the host, I'm in charge, and we have a special treat. Intern Eliza in the Sketcher seat. She's on the couch today. She actually gets to talk. Could you say something, Eliza?
Heh.
This is her eraser. It's really fun to play with.
That's actually a scrotum.
What?
Can I see it?
Whose?
I have to say inappropriate things since Matt's not here.
Oh, okay. So she's our official inappropriate speaker. And our guest today, I'm so excited about this because not only is he a good friend of mine, but we became friends through the artistic process. He's a director, an author, and a scholar. He's the director of the film Dark Progressivism, the author of 4 books, and more to come. Rodrigo Ribera D'Ebre.
Yay!
Yay! Oh my God, this is like a dream come true for me to have you on here. Even though we talk all the time about art and Southern California art, this is like a whole different vibe. This isn't us over coffee or something. So tell me a little bit about, or tell all of us a little bit about the concept of dark progressivism, which is a specifically Southern California art style that's been exported globally, and how you came up with that, how you recognized it, what qualifies as dark progressivism, who are some of the major artists?
Great. So originally the concept of dark progressivism came to me while I was thinking about tattoo art. So examining the idea of tattoo art and how it's been exported around the world, specifically black and gray tattoo art that originally came from street gangs, Mexican-American street gangs in Los Angeles that originated in prison. So the gang didn't originate in prison, but the artwork itself, it came from the streets and it came from prison, and then that influenced different people to participate in this style of work, and then that was exported around the world. So looking at the idea of tattoo culture and its relationship to lettering, its relationship to graffiti, its relationship to murals, I started to see a similar pattern in the artwork and its derivative, you know, where it came from and so forth, and the background of the artists that were doing it. And I started paying attention a little bit more to talks. Whenever I would go to a discussion at an art show, at a museum, at a gallery, I would listen to, you know, some of these concepts that people were talking about, and it just hit me out of nowhere that the idea of dark progressivism was, these were two ideas that kind of married together, and it has really been the trajectory of Los Angeles since the 1930s. So the idea goes back to German expressionism, black and white cinematography, film noir, and hard-boiled literature.
And you developed this concept while you were studying at Cal State LA?
No, I was already done with undergrad in political science. I was contemplating starting graduate school, getting a fine arts degree in creative writing. So it was just me examining the built environment, the current state of the art world, and things that were going on around me.
And built environment is a term you use a lot. What exactly does that mean?
It's a combination of things, really. It's the entire ecosystem of a community, and it could be looked at through the lens of architecture, through the social sciences, through artwork, through the freeway system. It's a variety of things.
So it's the man-made environment as opposed to the natural environment.
Yes.
And you already, by the time you developed dark progressivism, you'd published your first book, Urban Politics.
Yeah, I had published Urban Politics back in 2005. I started to write it during my senior year in undergrad because I started to examine my previous life. Well, not my, what I meant was, I was examining my history up until that point, being involved in gang culture, and what I was learning in political science classes was very similar. And I realized how politicized street gang organizations were up at that moment. And so I decided to take these ideas of street gang culture and juxtapose them with street gang culture, ideas such as budgeting principles, the social contract, the prison Congress, and so forth.
So you're saying that there's a parallel with gang culture and with our civic culture here in Los Angeles?
Yes, exactly. So the idea of simply joining a street gang goes back to the social contract. And if you examine the idea of a social contract behind Thomas Hobbes or Jean-Jacques Rousseau, this is a decision-making process amongst the multitude that there isn't any written document about it. It's just people come together and they create ideas and policies and so forth amongst this group of people. So what these philosophers have maintained is that in society there's a general social contract, and what I showed was that in the underworld, the underbelly of society, there's another social contract that exists, and that's the underlayer.
Whoa. Wow, you like threw out like all these philosopher names and stuff, and I'm like kind of at a loss here. But
it's fun stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's actually, I mean, that's one of the things I enjoy about hanging out with you, because you are actually, you are well read and better read than I in many, if not all areas. So you started seeing the way certain types of artwork melded together and built on each other and built on the traditional Southern California gang styles, tattooing and graffiti, like the placas with the lettering that mirrored the Los Angeles Times lettering, that old English style. It screams like, this is important news. And then you made a film about it.
And I made a film about it, yes.
Could we roll the trailer for the film Dark Progressivism, please? In the meantime, full disclosure, after I met Rodrigo, we clicked, and I clicked with the other associate producer, and so they made me an associate producer. And so I am an associate producer on the film Dark Progressivism, which is an award-winning documentary. And yay. Elisa, do you have any questions while we're waiting for the trailer to roll?
It works. Oh, it works. Do I have questions? No. I mean, no, because I'm doing this.
Okay. So while Elisa draws, we're going to show the trailer.
Dark progressivism to me represents, the darkness that we came out of. We came out of a dark era, in Los Angeles. There was a lot of political and social unrest, police brutality, gang warfare. I mean, there was a whole list of social ills.
There was an unwritten law that if you ran, if you're a homeboy, if you're a cholo at that time or a vato at that time, you ran, they shot you.
Yeah, I've been shot like several times, 2 different times actually. Got shot in my head and got shot all over the body a second time. And actually the second time I flatlined 4 times.
The one that had the shotgun instantly turned towards me and opened fire on me.
I got off the car and I saw my brother under the stairs and he had all these ice pick wounds.
I put away my guns and I picked up my cans.
One kid said when he first saw his first person doing a throw, he said, I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to do it.
For myself, I was probably most likely supposed to be gangbanging, but once graffiti hit me, it had me sprung. Even still today it has me sprung, because it's always moving, innovating.
I didn't do anything traditional what the Chicanos were doing because that wasn't who I was. I'm from LA, I was rock and roll. I didn't cruise Whittier, we cruised Hollywood.
I never thought I was gonna be traveling the world and doing what I'm doing off of lettering. I tried to paint and do other stuff and even tried graph, and even when I started tattooing, I was trying to do everything else, but somehow, some way, I fucking went to what I had the main passion for, which was lettering,
now surviving it, there is that progressivism where we're trying to progress and actually give back.
So it's almost like a metamorphosis. You know, you create and recreate yourself, you create and recreate yourself.
And use my art as a vehicle, not to glorify anything, but actually to, you know, show that, you know, people could change, people have the capacity to change, and there is hope that comes out of these dark places.
I love seeing that trailer. I love seeing all the artists who are in it. How did you get to know the artists, and did you know them before you started filming? Did you know some of them before? And was it difficult to gain their trust? Because they talk about some very intimate and personal stuff throughout the film.
I knew some of the artists before I started doing the film, and some of those artists led me to other artists. And yeah, it's a very sensitive subject matter that we're talking about, so I did have to work feverishly in a way to gain their trust. And by feverishly, it was more or less them getting to know me, me getting to know them on a personal level. So hanging out with them, talking to them, just being around them in general, and getting to know who they were, and having them know who I was. And we realized that a lot of similar things that we had experienced growing up were very parallel. Mm-hmm. And so that allowed them to think and trust me with their story, telling stories on film that they had never told before. And I helped ease them into that, and even gave some of them the opportunity to see some finished clips before the movie was out, to see if they were satisfied, because I respected their work and their ideas, and wanted to make sure that what they were representing in the film was accurate to their lifestyle and how they grew up as well.
So you grew up you were involved in gang culture growing up, correct?
Correct, yes. I grew up in Lenox near the LAX airport, and I grew up tagging, being in gang culture, and then when my two closest friends went to prison for a double homicide, for murdering a federal informant, that's when I decided that it's probably the best opportunity for me to step out of that lifestyle.
Well, speaking of federal informant, that's the title of your newest book, which will be released later this month, and it's based on a true story.
That is correct. The Federal Informant, which releases on October the 6th in San Pedro, is the book release party.
That's during the San Pedro Art Walk, isn't it?
It's during the San Pedro Art Walk. It's also in collaboration with the San Pedro International Film Festival, which is the next festival where we'll be screening. And it's also part of an art show that we'll be doing that you're going to be a part of as well.
So see, like this is Nepotism Day on Modern Art Blitz, because we also have, and this is really weird, just let me interrupt you for a second. We have Coagula magazine, its new issue out, and Rodrigo was looking through it and he goes, wait, that's Jim McHugh's artwork. And I go, well, no, it's by Raymond Pettibone. Well, it was owned by Jim McHugh. Jim McHugh is someone who's been intimately involved in the filmmaking process. He's an art photographer. He's someone you know. And Matt Gleason wrote this whole story about how Jim McHugh's painting, which is on the cover of the new issue of Coagula magazine, his Raymond Pettibone was sold at auction for a record-breaking $180,000, which
Fantastic.
is great, which shows that Jim has a great eye, not only with a camera, but for artwork. So back to the Federal Informant.
Yeah, so the Federal Informant tells the story of a high-ranking gang member turned federal informant working for the DEA and the Lenox Sheriff Department, and he ends up getting murdered by members of his own gang once he's discovered to be a federal informant. So my two closest friends at the time, they were convicted of this crime, and I never wanted to write the story. I I felt that it was inappropriate to write this story until they somewhat pressured me and thought that it would be a good idea to release the story.
So the actual people who committed the crime wanted you to tell their story in a slightly fictionalized version.
They did, and I decided that a good way to approach this story was to write it in a dark progressivist format, which is to show the noir aspect of the tradition of Los Angeles literary writing for a lot of people. So I did it. I did it, and I paid homage to the genre, and I referred to it as South Side Noir because it's a noir story, but it examines an aspect of a subculture that hasn't been examined through the noir lens by any other writer previous to this.
No, that is very, very true. I was lucky enough to read an early draft of it, and right now I'm looking for a quote that was sent in. Let's see. This is from Mark Ebner, who's a New York Times best-selling author and award-winning journalist. He's a true crime journalist. He said, based on a brutal true story, The Federal Informant is Los Angeles neo-noir, written by an insider with an ear for dialogue and an eye for the tough urban landscape. Rodrigo Ribera D'Ebre weaves his personal history as a teenage gang member into a complex tale of tragedy and deceit where redemption is out of reach and heroes no longer exist.
Thank you, Mark.
What I found really fascinating, I love noir. And I love my city, and I think Los Angeles is the most noir city, and certainly neo-noir. You look at Blade Runner, it's a neo-noir. You go back to The Big Sleep, Raymond Chandler's books, and then Ross MacDonald, and there's this, they were present at the time they were writing it, and you were present in the incidents that occurred in the book, and from my noir readings, like there was Ice Pick Slim, and Walter Mosley and John Ridley, who wrote about their community and their people in a noir sense. And John Ridley is so awesome. He created that TV show American Crime, which is one of my favorites. So what you've done is you have written a Mexican-American Los Angeles neo-noir. And I can safely say that you are probably the first person to have done this. I may be wrong. If so, email me and tell me I'm wrong.
I think so as well. And if I'm wrong, somebody can email us both and tell us that we're wrong. But I've researched this subject matter for many years, doing research about the city of Los Angeles and a lot of the contributors that have debunked the myth of what Los Angeles is, whether it's through art, whether it's through literature, whether it's through film and so forth. And I've never come across something like this myself. So I said, I'm going to be the one to do it because there's a void out there and I wanted to fill it.
And I think it's important that people write their own stories and tell their own stories. And that's what you did with the film Dark Progressivism, is that you allowed the creators of the art, you sort of realized there was a connection between these different styles, these different people creating art. There were through lines, and you allowed them to tell their own story. And right there, now what is this? Is this from the ESMOA show, the El Segundo Museum of Art show?
Yes, this is a collaborative piece from the El Segundo Museum of Art. It was curated by Alex Deferkizu, and he was able to work with his crew and some friends of his to do this masterpiece.
And who were some of the artists who participated in this mural, which is called Dark Progressivism? It's
called Dark Progressivism in homage to the film, because we did a lot of recording at the El Segundo Museum of Art during the Scratch exhibition, which was supposed to be representative and indicative of a climactic scene to some extent of the film. So some of the artists on the film, in this exhibition would be Gajin Fujita, Jose Prime Reza, Big Sleeps, Cryptic,
Patrick Martinez.
Patrick Martinez, Saber, Copy, and I think that's it. If I left anybody out, I apologize.
That is pretty, that's beautiful. And I can see all their different styles. I see some cryptic in there. I definitely see Gaijin. I see Sleeps. I recognize Deffer's work. The burning palm tree is Patrick Martinez, which is a classic. It's such an iconic image of Los Angeles now.
Exactly.
We remember it from the riots and we remember it from the fires. And it's magnificent. And I was just listening to Bad Religion's song, Los Angeles is Burning Today. So it just ties in beautifully. So the artists in dark progressivism range from like Roberto Gutierrez, who's in his 70s, Chas Bojorquez, who created Senor Suerte, the iconic fedora-wearing skull, smoking a rolled cigarette or something, which was the first stencil graffiti ever created, to much younger artists. And do you think the younger artists are influenced by these older artists, or have they kind of just been influenced by the streets and the vibe in general?
I think it's a combination of all these things. Sometimes just growing up in the city, navigating the city, negotiating with the city, you're influenced by all these different things that you might not even be aware of. So you might have driven through Highland Park, through the 110, and noticed some avenues writing, and that might have stayed embedded in your head, and maybe a few months later you did some similar writing and never realized that you were influenced by what you saw on those walls. Or maybe you went to a museum and you saw this phenomenal work by an artist but couldn't remember who it was, and then you started doing something similar. So just being in Los Angeles, you can be influenced by so many things, and since Los Angeles is a cluster of suburbs and communities and neighborhoods, that you have this vast landscape all over Los Angeles, and so you can always be influenced by so many things that you might not even realize.
One of the things we've discussed is how kids are often influenced by movies and TVs, and how we would like turn on the TV late at night coming in from doing whatever and see like old horror movies and gangster movies that were made by people either influenced by the German Expressionists or German Expressionists themselves. Like Fritz Lang's Metropolis is fits in beautifully with Los Angeles and the cement, and then horror movies and the low budget or high budget crime drama. And as well, just seeing, when you drive under the freeway, you're on a freeway and you look up and you see those angles and curves. Those are so beautiful, and I see that in the writing of these guys, that the freeway curves, definitely.
It's funny because you look at this piece here, and a lot of people have seen this piece, Dark Progressivism from Esmoa, and have said, wow, this is such a Los Angeles piece. They see it right away, and to them it's recognizable. So whatever these people did in this piece have completely shown or demonstrated the history, the narrative, the trajectory of what Los Angeles is. And what you mentioned about under bridges and so forth, infrastructure, this is the built environment. Roberto Gutierrez, you mentioned his name earlier, he does phenomenal work of the 6th Street Bridge and landscapes in general, and he has done them in a German expressionistic or impressionist style and a very abstract style as well. So those influences come from different places.
Exactly. So what is going on in San Pedro October 6th? Tell me about that, because we actually haven't had much of a chance to talk about it. Right. And you just said I was involved, so I guess I kind of sort of need to know what the heck I'm doing.
Sure. So you and I are curating an art show called the Noir Series.
Okay.
The Noir Series is it's a.
And this is, since it's a series, this is the first one.
Could be the first of others. Yeah, but a lot of the artists that are, there's only 4 artists in the exhibition, but these artists have have done their own version of a noir series, and since I had seen that they had done something like this, I wanted to put it together in one show. So Prime had done a noir series, and Jim McHugh had done a noir series, and Roberto Gutierrez had done a noir series, and we opened that invitation to Big Sleeps as well. And so it's these
That's
four.
That's going to be a really powerhouse show.
Yeah, so it's these four.
And it's two different generations, actually. Because Roberto.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I like seeing multi-generational shows. What are you working on right now, aside from the film getting Dark Progressivism getting distribution, an upcoming gallery show? Aside from Dark Progressivism, what's kind of going on? You're in school.
Yeah, I'm in school. This is my second year and the last year in the MFA program.
Where?
At Mount St. Mary's in the creative writing department, MFA Fine Arts. And I'm working on 3 novels simultaneously.
3 novels, and you have a baby. How do you do? And a wife. That's pretty awesome.
That's hard.
It's a lot of time management.
Yeah, it's staying up late at night, waking up really early, and looking for breaks in between, taking care of the baby, and trying to write. So.
Well, not trying to. You are
accomplishing writing.
Yeah.
Getting it done.
That is pretty awesome, and you're.
And I just finished a screenplay.
For
the federal
foreman.
Yeah.
So that. Wow. I'm totally blown away. Can I just say that I hope you can find time in your busy schedule to maybe give us a couple articles for Coagula.
Sure.
That would be really awesome, because you also have been blogging. You were blogging for a while, and your articles were also up on Huffington Post.
Yeah, it got harder to continue to create articles while the university demands a lot of my time, the baby demands a lot of my time, so I haven't been able to devote too much time to article writing. So I kind of took a step back and felt that working on these novels and the screenplay are a little bit more important at the time. The documentary, in a way, wraps up a lot of the articles that I was writing, and I wanted the documentary to have its own life. And then the novel's coming out, so then I have to do a lot of promotion with the novel and do a book tour and wherever that's going to go. And then once I'm done with the MFA, I'm applying to PhD programs. And so the goal of the PhD program, or just to have a doctorate in general, is to validate dark progressivism in academia.
And I think it will be. I definitely do. Aliza, are we done now?
Yeah.
Do you want to just hold this up to pass it over? Hold it up.
I don't want to see myself.
You're a handsome devil. So, wow. So there we go.
All right.
No, they're perfect. Good night. Bye.
Welcome to the land of illusion. Welcome to your final resting place. I see your mind is full